Leeuwin Estate is one of Australia's iconic wineries. Family owned and operated, this boutique vineyard and winery exports to over 30 countries and has an international reputation for making wines that rank alongside the world's finest. Leeuwin Estate has earned many prestigious awards for its wines, architecture, environment and for leadership in wine tourism.
So Dennis, what is it that's so special about this place that's Leeuwin Estate, amongst the 150-year-old carry trees out there, that makes it absolutely so ideal for growing grapes for great wine?
Margaret River has weather conditions in an average year that Bordeaux only enjoys occasionally in great vintage years. It's surrounded on three sides by water. It gives it a temperate climate. The granite rock that it was built on is zillions of years old. It's decayed, been leached of its assets. It's just ideal viticultural soil.
Dennis, Leeuwin Estate is famous for its art series labels. How did that concept start?
From Mouton Rothschild. I happened to be there, went through their art gallery, thought it was absolutely magic. Asked Philippina Rothschild if she minded if we put it on labels with Australian paintings. Came home and did just that. And we'll have art galleries and that sort of thing. It's just a piece of magic that works well with Leeuwin.
And Dennis, that of course led to what has become an annual event, the Leeuwin Estate Concert.
Absolutely. What had happened was that I thought this arena here that we had was an ideal place to have the arts. Then the London Philharmonic was offered to us, and I thought, they're not going to play in a vineyard, for God's sake. So I said, well, only if they'll play in the vineyard. Lo and behold, they did. So that was the first Leeuwin concert. From then on, it's gone on. We've had 4 international orchestras, people like Ray Charles, Jan Warwick, Dinah Ross, Dame Curie de Carnoy, James Galway, George Benson, Sting. 25 years of it.
Now the art series Chardonnay really is the icon, isn't it, of these wines. It's an icon in Australian Chardonnay. I think it's the best we make in Australia. What's the secret to that wine?
Our grapes are grown in a vineyard and it starts from there. Block 20 is the backbone of it, and it's blended with others, and they're all done blind, selected, blended together, and that finishes up being the art series wine. It's a complex process.
When was the first one of those made?
1980. We had a Chardonnay before that, which we made into a sparkling wine. That was the 1979. We thought it needed another year, and we got it.
Well, maybe we'd now look at your selection of premium wines, Dennis, the art series wines.
The Chardonnay is probably, well, it is the one that we're best known for. It's matured in French oak, 100% new oak for 11-12 months, then aged in stainless steel tanks. The sediment drops to the bottom. The wine's taken out after a year at that, bottled, and it's allowed to sit down for another year or two before it's released. It's a slow process, but then it's a great wine. The Leeuwin Estate Art Series Shiraz, it's a different Shiraz to most Australian wines in that I call it a female wine. It's matured in French oak rather than American oak, which leaves a sharp aftertaste. And it's ideal wine, that, in fact it's a very popular wine with the lighter meats and what have you. And I find, particularly with the women folk, that they'd probably rather drink a Shiraz than a Cabernet Sauvignon, but it gives them a choice of two. The Leeuwin Estate Art Series Sauvignon Blanc is a wine that, I guess again it's different. It's very rich, and it came because we grafted over the Shiraz vines to Sauvignon Blanc. And I think that was because the Shiraz was getting too ripe where it was, and this being an earlier ripening variety, we could take it off before the sun got at it and made it too ripe and what have you. And it's got a special place in the world of wine in Australia. The Leeuwin Estate Art Series Riesling is one of the wines that we planted right at the beginning. It was a Mondavi selection. It's a dry, mineralised type of wine. Extremely good. I always have it with oysters, by the way. And of course it's got 4 different frogs on it because the artist John Olsen produced 4. We've got 4 kids. I could hardly hand him back 3 of them, so we took the 4. Well, this is our art series Cabernet Sauvignon. It's probably the best one we've ever made. what's happened with the Art Series Cabernet is that we've gradually been moving it along, lowering the alcohol content and making it a more acceptable wine. It's very much a Bordeaux style. We're only making about 2,000 cases of it, and that seems to fill the market very well, and we're always running out of it. So it's a great wine.
Trish, I'm a bit of a Philistine when it comes to this whole thing about matching wine and food. Is there really something in it, do you think?
Well, our chef and our winemaker work together to come up with their best match, and we run a dish called Wine Flights, where 4 wines are matched with 4 starters, and people can experiment with those. But we wouldn't want to spoil the fun of the journey that people have finding their right wine for their right food.
Danny, you're the guy that's got the tough task of matching these great wines of Leeuwin with food. How do you go about it, and are there some critical factors in it that you look for?
Well, yeah, we're obviously produce driven with the food, so if we get a good product, then we start matching, speaking to the winemakers about the characteristics of that vintage, and then go from there and just try and match them at all times.
So you work closely with a winemaker in this process?
Yes, we do. Well, I try to get their input as much as I can on the food, and obviously their palate, a little bit different to mine, but getting their flavours and their ideas across from the wine, I then try to match the food to that wine.
Can you just take us through what you've chosen to go with these specific wines?
Well, the minerally flavours from the oyster seem to match really well with the Riesling, and the lime actually just keeps it nice and clean and crisp. So our next wine is our Art Series Sauvignon Blanc, which we've actually put with some kingfish. And we'll put a little bit of horseradish with that, just to give it a little bit of pepper towards the end, so our wine will actually show some nice fruit. Our next wine is the Leeuwin Estate Chardonnay, which is our flagship wine, and we've aimed to marry that with a scallop. And being a big wine, to stay underneath that, we're having to wrap it in some prosciutto, and we're serving it with a little bit of a raisin and a little bit of butter. So it seems to just complement the Chardonnay with that buttery flavour just beautifully. Our next wine is our Art Series Cabernet, which we've put with some beef carpaccio, some Reggiano and some Rocket. So our flavours there are quite clean, a little bit of sharpness from the Reggiano and a little bit of pepper from the Rocket, which we think complements just beautiful.